bit about Baker Mayfield and some of the struggles that he's been having this year. Let's take a look graphically at this, and it's pretty striking. You look at his numbers from a season ago and roughly the same sample size as he didn't play most of the year a season ago, and you see completion percentage down, more interceptions than touchdowns, almost flipped from a year ago. He's sacked more. And the
red zone completion percentage is unreal.
Right. And again, my contention with that one is they're not doing him any favors in the red zone. Their red zone play calling has been just awful. I mean, some of it is execution.
Well,
you can't put it all on him. But D-man, there's not guys open. I mean, and I said it last night, I'll say it again. Where's Rashad Higgins been? That's the guy that he could count on to be where he expected him to be and open most of the time a season ago. And I'm not a big Callaway fan. I'll say it again.
We still haven't gotten satisfactory answers on what's been going on with Hollywood. When I see Mayfield struggles in the red zone, yes, I think of coaching as a problem, but I also think it's a confidence issue. I think Baker Mayfield doesn't have the confidence, doesn't have the gunslinger bravado that he had last year, where he was feeling it and just zipping it and throwing the ball around the yard, Favre-like. Now you see a quarterback who's a little bit gun-shy, and the one thing you can't do in the red zone is double clutch. You can't say, uh-oh, maybe not, maybe I shouldn't. He who hesitates in the red zone is lost. And I think that's what's happening to Mayfield this year. It is more a confidence problem than it is a scheme coaching problem to me.
Well, I would say two things. One, the offensive line is he's not able to get comfortable and probably doesn't feel that they're – I think there was a comfort level with the offensive line a season ago where he knew where he could go to find space to buy time. I don't think that exists now because it's breaking down in different areas on different plays. And then I just don't think – I think you're right. I don't think he's comfortable with what they're asking him to do. I think they're asking him to do different things that don't play to his strengths.
Right, and even on a well-coached team, quarterbacks are going to go through, especially young ones, they're going to go through adjustment periods. So Baker Mayfield has his coming out party last year, and defensive coordinator's like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's really good, But then you get an off season to study the tape, to study what his tendencies are, the fact that he likes to leak out to the right. All of a sudden, defensive coordinators go, all right, we're going to stop him from leaking out to the right. We know he's a shorter quarterback. We're going to hem him in. We're going to force him to step up in the pocket instead of being able to, to get out the side doors. And these adjustments that get made are more easily implemented after having an off season to examine than they are week over week, as was the case last year when he took the world by storm. So now I think it's incumbent upon Mayfield to say, all right, now they've adjusted to me, now I have to adjust back. And I have to do some things differently to counter what they're doing, including some of the disguises, some of the zone blitzes, some of the mans that look like zone and zone that looks like man. He's got to figure out, all right, I have to make the adjustments now.
And I think he will. In fairness, I think he will figure it out. It's going to take a little bit. There's a reason quarterback is so tough to play. But he will, I do think he will eventually figure it out. Your thoughts?
I sure hope so, because I'm not.
You're not as sold on it.
Well, I'm not looking forward to Garrett-Gilbert. No disrespect to him, but the Browns. They made Mayfield the #1 overall pick for a reason. Dorsey did. He's expected to be the franchise quarterback. I'm a little unsettled by the very pedestrian to bad numbers that Mayfield has put up. He's, by almost any measure, he ranks in the bottom 5 in quarterbacks in the NFL this year. But I still believe in his skills. I still believe in his, ability to play much better, and therefore, I hold out hope.
Well, you mentioned it, and, Freddie Kitchens obviously has been told about the stats, but he doesn't think they're really reflective of exactly the way Mayfield's playing.
Stats causes controversy or causes raising of the person per se, So you can't just look at stats and tell the whole story. I know that's a lot of times all anybody has to look at. I understand that and recognize that fact, but that doesn't tell the whole story. I said from the day one, no two teams are ever the same. We've got to continue. This group of guys have to continue to try to get better. Try to increase the level of execution and the consistency of execution. And when we do that, we will play better. There's no secret about that. You execute, you play good. You don't execute, you don't play good.
Baker's been so accurate throughout his career to be last in the NFL in completion percentage. That being said, what do you attribute that to?
There's a lot of factors that go into that, I don't think he's just wildly missing passes. So, I don't know. I don't really look at that. I just want him to get better today, just like I want him to get better this week, more than last week. I truly do not look at stats.
Okay.
Dave, first let me just say, I wish the human body could take the punishment of an NFL game 60 to 70 times a year, and the head wouldn't be mashed in and if you could tell me the NFL would be concussion proof, there would be no concussions, I'd be ecstatic, because we could play a lot more games and have a lot less talk. Because you get tired of hearing this, and I'm sure Kitchens gets tired of answering the same questions, worded differently. But, Freddie, stats are an indicator of how a player is performing. But when I look at Mayfield, I agree with you. I don't look at just the stats. They're part of it, but I trust my eyes too. Mm-hmm. It's not just the numbers that show that Mayfield is struggling. When you watch him, you're not seeing a player, Dave, who is belying the numbers, who's playing better than his stats, right?
Nope.
So in that sense, Freddie, just because you dismiss the stats doesn't mean you have to dismiss your eyes. Your eyes can tell you, you know what? He's not playing well by that standard either.
Well, the other thing is if somebody's stats are that drastically different, one of the things I would think you do is you go back and you ask them, what are you asking him to do differently? What did you ask him to do last year? Because he probably has a whole lot more talent at the skill positions. Remember, he put up those numbers with not a good receiving core.
No.
Now he has a really good receiving core.
Well, I think a lot of what his success was tied to last year, besides his ability and Freddie Kitchens' play calling, was play design. Yeah. It allowed not necessarily five-star receivers to succeed in the scheme. And now you're seeing when it looks like the play design isn't quite what it needs to be. I wonder what's going on behind the scenes with Kitchens and Monken. It appears to me, at least through 8 games, based on 2 and 6, based on how the offense has performed, that it was not a marriage that should have been made. No disrespect to either one of those guys. They're both great offensive minds, Kitchens and Monken. But it's entirely possible that Monken's offensive philosophy just doesn't jibe with Kitchens. And they just can't get their philosophies to mesh. And what you see as a result is an offense of fits and starts.
Yeah. Or round square in a square
Doesn't mean
peg.
either one of them's a bad guy. Doesn't mean either one of them doesn't have a great offensive mind. It just means you have two different philosophies,
Yeah.
or two philosophies that are far enough different
You're-
that you can't get them to do this.
You're-
They're constantly doing this.
You're penning a thing. It's the Frankenstein offense. The Browns' Frankenstein offense. Congratulations.